Good morning. And good morning to Zoom land. Please let my words speak for you. Spirit God, we are here this morning, opening our hearts, opening our minds, ready for a soul conversation, ready for a conversation with and about God. I celebrate the presence of each one here and each one in the Zoom room, and the presence of God flowing through each one of us, is in, as, and through each one of us. And I know that each one today is fed physically and spiritually. And so I just open my heart with joy and love and laughter as Reverend Diana speaks with us about grace. So I say thank you, Father, Mother, God, and so it is. Amen.
I need my musical partner up here. So good morning and happy Mother's Day. Oh, nice to see you here, Julie, Glenn. Yay. We have a small but mighty group. Many are doing their Mother's Day family things at the lake and elsewhere, but we are here as family. So welcome to the Mystic Heart.
Welcome to the Mystic Heart. Join the celebration. Lift your voice and sing your part. Make this affirmation. Spirit made us family with loving hearts to share. Together we are joyfully practicing the possible through prayer. Welcome to the Mystic Heart.
Alrighty, if you want to join Angela in dancing to the next one, feel free.
Everybody, get up on your feet. See the light in everybody you meet. Everybody, get up on your feet. See the light in everybody you meet. Let us be reminded of who we've come to be. We are love, we are one big family. Hey, hey,
It's coming back.
yeah. Hey, 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 everybody, get up on your feet. See the light in everybody you meet. Everybody, get up on your feet. See the light in everybody you meet. Let us be reminded of who we've come to be. We are love, we are one big family. Hey, 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 yeah. Hey, 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 yeah. Let us make a joyful sound. Here we stand on holy ground. Let us make a joyful sound. Here we stand on holy ground. Let us make a joyful sound. Hey, 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 hey. Everybody, get up on your feet. See the light in everybody you meet. Hey, 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 yeah. Hey, 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 yeah, yeah.
Sorry for the lyrics, guys. Having glitch.
I like that.
I'm glad you like
I
it.
want to sing along real quick.
I know. I don't
Try
know what
rebooting the
happened.
TV.
Try rebooting the TV. Well, welcome everybody that's here on purpose and in person. On purpose and in person. Welcome everybody that's here online. Join us in a rousing round of amazing grace. Might not sound so rousing at the start, but just wait.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved and set me free. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. It's been here 10,000 years, bright shining as a sun. We've known less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. His grace has brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved and set me free. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
We can hear that a few more times so we can get used to it.
Yeah, why not?
Was that song meant for me? No.
Oh my goodness.
Probably so.
Probably so. Such a beautiful morning this morning. We've got the rain coming and going, the mist, the cool temperatures, just the beautiful, beautiful clouds, and the mountains still have a little bit of snow on them. Northern California. Snowing in Weaverville, that is great news. We're so blessed to live in this part of the country and this part of the state. At least I feel that way. So we're going to begin this morning the actual conversation by slipping into a little bit of musical prayer through our chant this morning. We've been this month singing together about the garden, and it will be on the screen for you.
There is a garden where everything's come true. A beautiful garden where God's grace blooms. There is a garden where everything grows. A beautiful
So beautiful to join our voices together in song, musical prayer. And so together as we begin, I invite you to envision with me a web that encompasses the earth, where every point on that web where two strands cross is one of us. We'll begin with just one of us here and online. Each one of us radiating light, the light of spirit. And feel that within you. Feel that light radiating within, right around the heart and out from there. And then realizing that every single human being, with no exceptions, is a radiant point of God's light. And so envisioning your light melding into the light of all of the other beings, all of the other human beings, and then all of the other creatures, each one intentionally and perfectly created, shining its light as an expression of God in form. One light melding into the next. And then noticing too that it isn't just the animal life, but the plant life. Every tree, every flower, every lichen, every moss. Just radiating with the light of spirit. And allowing that light to spill over from the living creatures to what we would call the non-living, the rocks and the sand and the water. Because we know that these too are God in form and that they are truly alive with spirit. And allowing that light to just move further and further out, recognizing the radiant light of spirit in the clouds, in the stars, in the planets. All of creation. One light, one love, one intelligence, shining through all of it. So basking and feeling that connection, that oneness. We have brought our hearts and our minds into a place where we can now open to conscious conversation. So I have a question for you this morning. The title today is Amazing Grace. What is grace? And for those who haven't attended before, this is an open conversation. So you are invited, if you're comfortable and want to answer any of the questions that come along, taking part. What is grace?
God's voice.
God's voice. Yeah.
A heartwarming welcome, maybe?
A heartwarming welcome. Oh, that's beautiful.
The voice of God running through my life.
The voice of God running through my life.
The color of love.
The color of love.
I think it's the voice of God running through our life, even when it says things we don't want to hear.
Oh, you mean grace doesn't always feel and look pretty? Oh, darn. We're probably all familiar with the practice at some point, maybe now in our lives or when we were younger, the practice of saying grace before meals. Anybody here other than me raised with saying grace? Did anyone here have a specific grace that they said with the family around the table as a child?
Yep.
Yeah? What was your grace?
I don't even think I remember it.
Don't remember. Anybody remember your grace? Yeah?
I do, because it's the same one I taught my grandkids. Come, Lord Jesus, be our guest, and let our food to us be blessed.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's pretty.
God is great, God is good, and we thank Him for our food.
All right. God is great, God is good, and we thank Him for our food.
We had two of them. We had that one and good gravy, good meat, good God. Let's
Yeah.
That was my
Yeah.
dad's favorite.
That was Dad's favorite, yeah. We had, thank you for the world so sweet. Thank you for the food we eat. Thank you for the birds that sing. Thank you, God, for everything.
That's pretty too.
That was in our family that, actually my family wasn't religious. I never to this day understood why we said grace every night, because other than that we had no religion anywhere in our household, but that was the grace. So like other prayers, when we repeat something often, we have a couple of choices. We can take the words to heart and we can really bring it in and give it meaning, or we can rattle it off like something we do every night, before we get to eat. When we take prescribed prayers and we begin to just take them from rote, they can kind of lose their effect, I think, in our lives. Father Richard Rohr says, if we are accustomed to praying over our food, it may become a rote, almost a thoughtless gesture. Yet it's another opportunity to intentionally open ourselves to receive and participate in grace. So again, what does that mean? So we had a voice, a lot of talk about grace as a voice running through our lives, but this says that we can participate in grace. So what is grace? It is all that we have voiced. Is there anything else that comes to mind?
It's part of God's expression in relationship.
Okay,
So
part of
So back and forth.
the back and forth, part of God's expression in relationship with us.
A form of communication.
A form of communication.
Grace
Yeah.
is ask and thou shalt receive.
Oh, ask and thou shalt receive. Knock and the door will be open unto you. So I want to do just a really brief recap of where we've been, because I've been following sort of a line of thought from week to week. We began when we first started Conscious Conversations as our format. We changed our format. And so we started by making friends with our fear. Making friends with our fear. The fear that, especially the fear that tends to get in our way whenever we start something new, whenever we begin something unfamiliar or, maybe really challenging. So there is sometimes a fear that pops up. Then the next week we talked about creative inspiration and how we can set an intention and give our attention with faith to that which we set before ourselves, and how the intention, attention, and faith help us in our journey toward carrying out whatever it is we have, whatever it is that's our purpose. Last week we looked at originality and the idea that each of us is born as an absolutely unique expression of the divine. And that was sort of our working definition of originality. It's who we are, it's what we are, the idea that there's not another one like us, that we're absolutely unique. And then we also looked at authenticity, which is, we decided, the process of living our lives as the original beings that we were created to be. So originality is sort of who we are. Authenticity is the process of that unfolding as our lives. So how does grace fit in with what we've been talking about? Right off the bat, see any connections? Mm-hmm. So I still dig into my Science of Mind textbook from time to time. And so here's a definition of grace offered by Ernest Holmes. Maybe this will help us to make some connections. He said that grace is the givingness of spirit to its creation and is not a special law, but a specialized one. In other words, grace is, but we need to recognize it. Grace is. It just simply is. But it's we who need to recognize it. So when he says correct, oh, whoops, I jumped a line. I got to give you the quote that says correct first. It goes on to say it's not something God imposed upon us, but is the logical result of the correct acceptance of life, of a correct relationship to the Spirit. So here when you read correct, does that mean right and wrong? That there's only one right way to do this thing? Because that sounds a little bit like dogma to me, and we don't do dogma. So if Ernest Holmes is using correct, and we assume that it doesn't mean there's a right and a wrong, what might this be, this correct acceptance of life?
In a way that harmony or true.
Okay, harmonious or true,
In a way that supports us and supports others.
in a way that supports us and others.
Accepting reality, and this, and part of the reality is the love and goodness and grace of God.
Okay, so accepting the reality, and part of that reality is the goodness and the love and the grace of God. Yeah, I think that would be right what he meant, exactly what he meant, all of those things.
I like the last part too, when it says of a correct relationship to the Spirit, meaning probably trying to find you for a long time.
That's right, Spirit may have been
Yeah,
poking
yeah.
on your shoulder for a long time, huh? But
Yeah.
we have to recognize
Two by
it,
six.
receive it, respond to it.
What did you say?
Yeah.
I said with the 2x6.
Oh, Spirit goes kaboom. Oh, I get it now. Okay.
It went over my head.
All right, so the last part of his quote, he concludes with, "We are saved by grace to the extent that we believe in, accept, and seek to embody the law of good. For the law of good is ever a law of liberty and never one of limitation. Limitation is not a thing, not an entity, but a belief. Freedom is a divine reality." Okay, so we're getting serious now. He's talking embodiment. What does embodiment mean?
Moving from your intellect down into your heart.
Okay, from the intellect down into the heart.
Giving form to.
Okay, so giving form to something.
You live it.
You live it. Okay. I always like walking the talk, you know.
What was that last part where it said freedom is a divine what?
Huh? Freedom is a divine reality. Divine reality. So what he's saying is, in truth, in spiritual truth, in that we are born in the image and likeness of the essence and substance of the one divine presence, we are inherently free. We are granted that freedom. However, our worldly experience, our own mental constructs, our societal constructs, all of those things get in the way of our experience of our innate freedom.
So who do you think throws that in our path? That
Who throws that in our path?
do you believe that God throws those trials at us, or
Mm.
or the wicked?
What do y'all think?
Do it to ourselves.
Okay, we do it to ourselves.
Media,
The media helps.
parents,
Well,
teachers.
Seeing as how it's all one and we're all God and that's all God and everything like that, in a way we do all do it to ourselves because we are all God embodiment and we are all one.
Okay. So do you suppose that if we want to call God the one source, the one intelligence, the one life, the one that emanates as everything, then there isn't anything that comes into our path that isn't of spirit. It's all of spirit. But do I believe that there's a being in the sky and the clouds that's planning for my difficulty and challenge? I don't I don't personally believe that. I believe that it's all spirit and that grace does not always look pretty or feel good. Sometimes it is the 2x4. Sometimes it is challenges that we are meant to grow through, and that I hold all of that as spirit unfolding for my highest good and for the highest good of all. Huh?
That makes sort of sense.
Sort of sense? Yeah, we'll just hold it lightly for a bit. One thing about what we teach here is that we recognize that every individual, just like our absolute original physical and mental makeup, we are individual expressions of the divine, and in that we will all have our own spiritual paths and walks, and we remain open and receiving and accepting and welcoming of all paths. Of course, in my personal life, I hold to my own path, and part of that is the practice of non-judgment and acceptance, which I believe was a major teaching in Jesus' walk, so, as well as other teachers. So as we embody the law of good, we embody it, we live it, we walk that talk, we live the good, we experience grace. This is my perspective, never trying to push that out on y'all at all. I'd like to share a reading, though, with you from the Sacred Yes, book from Reverend Deborah Johnson. Before I start that, are we warm in here, or is it just me? Okay. Bob, could you maybe adjust the air for me? Thank you. I don't want anybody to get uncomfortable.
Thank you.
Well, actually, I do want you to get a little uncomfortable, but not in that way. A little bit of discomfort is a good push. So this is a book of conversations Reverend Deborah Johnson wrote down. You could call them inspiration that she received, that she believes were of spirit. And she just writes as they come. And so if you'd like to close your eyes to listen as meditation or not, either way, whatever works for you. But this is in a chapter that she calls My Grace is Sufficient. There is this false conception, based upon interpretations of the earliest chapters of Genesis, where it is proclaimed that I have made life difficult and challenging for you human beings. So this is like God talking. The I is God talking. That life is to be lived only by the sweat of your brow. Too many of you are measuring your sense of accomplishment in life by how much you have, in fact, sweat. If there has not been a sufficient amount of pain involved, hard work, hardship, sacrifice, even mere stress, then there's a tendency to believe that nothing has been gained. The popular colloquialism, no pain, no gain, is no longer merely a prophecy about the future. It has become deeply rooted as your belief system. It is difficult for you, especially in your American society, to accept my grace. You are always looking to the fruits of your own labor as the source of your good. You find it difficult to accept anything that you feel you do not deserve. And you do not feel like you deserve anything if you have not worked hard for it. So it is most challenging for you to simply accept the good when it comes around. It is difficult for you to feel a sense of ownership and entitlement. Oh, there's that word from last week. Towards your spiritual good, because it is outside the realm of your human reward system. My grace is not a reward for anything you have done. My grace is not removed for anything that you have not done. My grace is forever, and my grace is sufficient. My grace is sufficient. So as we get closer to figuring out what grace means for each of us, let's take a minute to consider what we've just heard, what I just read. Think for yourself, do you have individually a false belief that life is supposed to be hard. Filled with pain and suffering, hard work and lessons to learn.
Life is what you make it, right?
Life is what you make it.
And I made it pretty dang hard.
We can make it hard on ourselves, can't we?
Yep.
I grew up with that idea. Work is supposed to be, the word work is a 4-letter word. I mean, and I don't believe that anymore.
A lot of it
Well,
has
you
to do
know,
with choices.
those who plow in tears shall reap in joy. That's one of the I come from, I grew up in the Jewish faith, and that's the blessing at the end of every meal.
Mm-hmm.
That has Hazorim bedinma berina yigsoru.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean,
So do
it
those
seems to be part of the laws of the reality here, that there is, to a certain extent, there is something that says that we need to put forth our labors,
right?
and challenge ourselves,
Oh yes.
Yeah.
But does that labor and that challenge have to be painful?
Well,
Just something
tears are painful, right?
Not always. I cry for joy.
Okay.
I cry for gratitude. I cry for everything. So you never know my tears. I cry. So I'm just saying that we might interpret that as those tears are the pain and the toil and difficulty, and that's perfectly fine.
Okay.
Yeah, but also, could it be the tears that we're crying are a deep sense of joy and gratitude?
I think there's like a
for what
split
we've been
reality.
given?
You're talking about a certain reality where you accept the grace just because,
Mhm.
but then there's the earthly reality, or another reality where we're not living in an ideal situation
Right.
here, and we do need to put in our tears and our efforts in order
Mhm.
to redeem it in some way. So,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah. I do agree that that is what the experience is in
Okay.
this plane.
All right.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, Glenn?
Well, I was just thinking about it's as if there's two levels of it. You can't avoid the pain and suffering of life. I mean, it is there, but there's then how do we respond to that?
Right.
So,
Exactly.
do we respond with grace, or do we respond with exacerbating the
Right.
situation?
So do we accept it and let it move through our lives, or do we resist it and try to hold it off?
You don't want to resist it.
What you
Yeah.
resist will persist.
Causes more hardship.
Right, yeah.
That's the first-
Two versions of the same thing. It'll cause more hardship. What you resist persists.
Well, the words you ended with there, "My grace is sufficient," were the words of the Apostle Paul
Yes.
when he was describing trials in his life, but God kept telling him, "My grace is sufficient." And so,
Right.
in his trials, he realized that the trial is not the issue. The issue is that God is always gracious.
Beautiful.
Also, always forgiving.
And always forgiving. So this idea, where does it come from? Because we do live by this earthly reality. I mean, you can't deny that it's prevalent in our belief systems, and then which means that's what we embody and express, that life has a certain amount of suffering. And again, I don't equate challenge with suffering. Challenge for me is the experience of what's going on, and the suffering is my resistance of it. So I can choose to resist or not, to suffer or not, even though it's a painful experience. Just one way to look at it. So where does this idea come from, though? Because it's clearly part of what we live with and in. This idea that life is hard and that there needs to be a certain amount of suffering involved.
Your upbringing.
Your upbringing.
Of
Absolutely.
how an individual was taught
Mhm.
or raised, or
Right.
I mean, or even when they go to school, kids learn
Yeah.
things that everything.
Right. So it's all around us.
It's random.
Yeah. It's embedded in the race
Mhm.
consciousness of humanity. It's the thoughts, beliefs, activities of all beings of all time sort of make up this soup of what we're born into. It's part of our long history on the planet. And maybe the pain and suffering even became exasperated, that belief became exasperated during the Dark Ages when humanity really did hit a long, dark period.
I think part of it is also a literal translation of the second chapter of Genesis.
Okay? So literal translations of sacred scriptures can add to that, certainly. Before that, when human beings lived in tribes and they hunted and gathered and lived by the seasons, it seems like maybe there was an inherent understanding of grace, like just an embodiment, a natural embodiment of grace. They allowed themselves to be supplied, and they received that supply, and they had sacred ritual of thanksgiving around that supply. It just seems like it was a natural part of society, and in these days it isn't necessarily for all people. It's not how we live. So here's where grace and faith are related in my mind. So do we have to have faith that grace is real? That we will have exactly what we need when we need it, if we're going to experience it? I mean, if I'm someone who does not place my faith in grace, can I experience it? Good question.
Maybe it cuts down your odds.
Cuts down your odds?
Maybe accidentally every once in a while.
Accidentally every once in a while? Why is that? Is it because grace isn't present?
Because I'm asleep to it.
If I'm asleep to it, it can be right in front of my face. But if I don't have faith that it's available to me because of where I've been and what I've lived, that grace might be right there and I can be looking the other way.
That could also be what your dreams become of, is what is in your face when you are asleep.
Could be. That could be what your dreams are made of. So I'm going to look at the next couple paragraphs here. She continues on to say, in God's voice, what do I mean when I talk about grace? Grace is such a nebulous concept for those who live in an individualistic, capitalistic, materialistic society. Those who buy into the fundamental assumptions that run such a society have gotten into thinking that it is individuals who create their own opportunities, individuals who create their own good, individuals who, in fact, are the cause of their own rises and successes. This is extremely egocentric. You are constantly going about trying to create the perfect circumstances, the right conditions for yourselves, and assuming that acquiring these will create the space for you to be the all that you are to be. The all that you are to be, then, is dependent on outer expressions. However, if this is the place where you live, then you will never know what it is to receive my grace. Grace is outside the realm of accomplishment, reward, punishment, anything and everything that would be associated with the human process of creating. Grace is my love and provision for you just because you are. Hear what I just said. Grace is my love and provision for you simply because you are. Simply because you are my own, my only begotten children. Everything that I have is yours simply by your spiritual birthright. It is your divine inheritance. You cannot earn your inheritance. It is yours simply because you were born, simply because you exist. Because you exist, you are recognized, and the goods of the estate are divvied out in a manner that takes you into consideration. Some individuals do not get more than others, at least not in what is possible, in potential. No one is left out. There is no squabbling, haggling, or competing in my world and in my system. Each is filled unto his or her own need, as is described in the biblical story of the multiplying of the loaves and the fishes. By starting with what they had, gathering that up, blessing it and sharing it, all needs were met. And there was more left over at the end than they had when they started at the beginning. So I think what this author is saying is that in potential, Spirit makes all available to everyone. Now that's in the absolute sense of truth. And then, as human beings, we are born into this race consciousness in this material plane in our various circumstances. And then we continue to create our own circumstances. And based on whether we believe that grace is available to us or not, then we experience that grace or not. Do you have faith and belief enough to step out on my grace? Can you accept the fact that I want your life to be fulfilled because I want as much life expressing through you as humanly possible? Do you understand that you are indeed my shining glory? Out of anything and everything that has been consciously or unconsciously created and developed in this world, your existence as human beings is the very closest thing to my nature. Please do not mistake this for human beings are above and more important than the rest of creation. This is only to say that if we are to see creative spirit, God, as giving of itself by creative process as all of creation, and that we are born in that image and likeness, that our ability to make conscious choices and to create on purpose is more like God's creative power than perhaps other creatures. It does get mistaken that dominion becomes domination and all of that. That's another talk. We're not going to even go there today. Okay, let's see. Where was I? I want your lives to be fulfilled. I want you to be happy, healthy, creative, productive, loved, and sustained. These are things that I want for you. And these are things that ultimately come through my grace. Since you live in a temporal world where all of the outer forms of expression are constantly changing and fluctuating, you have no way of ever really knowing what is ahead of you and what will be available to you. Trying to worry about all of this by looking at it simply through your human eyes can get quite overwhelming and perplexing. Once you learn that your job is to live by my grace, you will learn how to simply praise me and praise yourself as a spiritual being and declare our deep oneness with each other. You stop looking for reasons why the good should be there or reasons why good may not stay, and you simply go on with the business of enjoying the goodness at hand. What would that be like? Stop worrying about the next moment, about tomorrow, about what may or may not be, or what has been or has not been. Just going on with the business of enjoying the goodness at hand, all of God's gifts that are everywhere present all the time. I'm not trying to render you powerless, only trying to help you keep your egos in check, as you would say. Your ego has such a strong need to feel as though it is doing something. It needs to take credit for what's going on in your life, for better or worse. Your ego has a difficult time accepting a subservient role in the spiritual kingdom. Now there's a word that can trigger people. Subservient. It wants to place itself front and center. This notion that the ego is the servant of the spirit is extremely unsettling for many of you. However, if you are to be successful on your spiritual journey, it is necessary to move beyond merely looking at the world through your natural eyesight. When you are able to accept grace as simply a state of being, not an action that I take to bestow something upon you in time of need, not a perk for having reached a certain spiritual plateau, not the byproduct of your own spiritual disciplinary work. When you can accept that my grace is sufficient simply because you are, then your true freedom and ability to access the grace that is already yours will come more effortlessly and easily. Perhaps the most operative word here is humility. Humility is what is necessary for your ego to move into a subservient position. Your ego must be willing to surrender, to submit, to admit that it is, as your grandmother would say, the caboose and not the engine. My grace is sufficient. So what about this ego thing that we deal with? What's the ego? Okay?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a distorted belief or thought in your head that could lead to altercation, or it could lead to anything really that is going on.
Okay.
Like if you were speaking, like if I had a problem with what you were saying, my ego would kick in and get defensive probably.
Okay, so our ego is the part of us that can be defensive. Is the ego just what we'd call the negative aspects of our being,
It
though?
could be both.
No.
Broadly, it's our sense of self.
Okay, our sense of self, or sense of our humanity on this plane, who we are. So it's both. It's there to protect us. It's also that part of us that can see the perfect and original expression of God that we are here to be, and to step into that in a very physical sort of way in the world. So this is saying that my grace, God's grace, is sufficient at all times. In all things. No exceptions.
100% perfect.
100% perfect. And finish with just a tiny bit more here. What does my grace look like? It looks like whatever you need it to be in the moment in order for you to know that you are not alone in this universe, that you are under my watch and in my care. Grace may look to you like the healing of your body temple against all predictions. It may look like a calm, a sense of peace in the midst of seeming great chaos and confusion in your life. My grace may look like the answer to the riddles of your life that have kept you stumped and confused in a total state of darkness. My grace may look like the energy that you need, this is mine right now, to keep putting one foot in front of the other when you feel too weary to move on. My grace may be the softening of the hearts and the meeting of the minds between individuals who have been at odds with each other in polarized situations. My grace may look like that financial need being met in a most mysterious way. My grace may look like a beacon of light at the end of the long tunnel, letting you know that there is a way out and that a brighter day is coming. My grace can look like so many things. How many needs do you have? Well, therein is the number of ways in which my grace can and will appear. As many as you can. Yes.
That's cool.
Yeah. So if you're like me, you want to know it. You don't want to just think that maybe this is true. Believe that, maybe grace is available, but you want to know it. So, do you believe it? That grace is always available and ever flowing and surrounding and filling and supporting?
It's to willing and accept and being in acceptance towards it too.
Being an acceptance of it, right?
Like if you deny the grace, then grace can't be given, right?
Right. It's like saying, no thank you, God. I don't want you to give me.
That's like pushing them away.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bob?
And other beliefs, they believe that to to not waste energy on the past or the future, just live for the present,
Right?
which could include grace,
Yeah.
for sure.
So living in the present, seeing the grace that's available now. So I'm asking myself here, but I can pass this on to you. You say, yes, I believe it. Do you know it? Or belief and knowing the same thing?
Back to embodiment.
Oh, embodiment, okay. So then do you live it? Do you live as though the grace is there for you?
I could say today, yes.
Today, yes.
I-
Tomorrow, who knows?
No, no, no. As
Sometime.
of today, freshly,
Uh-huh.
and coming into realization of a lot of things in my life, you
Mhm.
know, yes, wholeheartedly, 100% faith.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Hmm.
It's beautiful.
I think he makes a good point too, that it's not, I believed yesterday and therefore today is okay.
Right.
It's more like today is what's important, whether I believe it or not.
Mhm.
Whether it's
Yeah.
yesterday or tomorrow, it doesn't
Yes.
matter.
What I believe in today, right here in this moment, is what's important in my life today and here in this moment. And those beliefs shift, can change.
But the grace never does.
But the grace never, no, it's just always there. We're swimming in it. It's forever there.
Would you consider to have? It might be a silly question, but do you see ever having doubt in grace, like doubt in grace, like you have sometimes doubt in faith?
In my past, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hey, yeah, I've been on a journey for over 30 years of finding where I am now, so definitely had times in my past where I doubted the existence of grace or its availability to me. You know, maybe it's there for everybody else, but not me.
But today, now I know what it means.
Yeah. So I'm moving back to Father Richard Rohr as we look again at setting an intention and giving it our attention. He says that the goodness of God fills all the gaps of the universe without discrimination or preference. God is the gratuity of absolutely everything. The space in between everything is not space at all, but spirit. God is the goodness glue that holds the dark and light of things together. The free energy that carries all death across the great divide and transmutes it into life. He continues that grace is not something God gives. Grace is who God is. Grace is God's official job description. I love Richard Rohr. Grace is what God does to keep all things that God has created in love alive forever. If we are to believe the primary witnesses, the mystics, the saints, the transformed people, an unexplainable goodness is at work in the universe. An unexplainable goodness is at work in the universe. That's my definition of what God is. It's mysterious, it's unexplainable. Definitely a force for good. So the really good news is that we're in charge of whether or not we experience grace in our lives. It's up to us to open to it. As we remember to be grateful for what we have, no matter what it looks like, we're opening to grace. Because again, grace doesn't always look like what we want. Grace can look like the losing of a job, and then the opening of a new door and the stepping into a new purpose. Grace can look like a failed relationship, opening the way for new relationship or new expression in our lives. It can look like an illness that awakens us to the need to care for this body temple. It doesn't always look like goodness and light. I've spoken to someone recently who went through the car fire and experienced a devastating home loss, fleeing the flames in pajamas in someone else's car. That's how much she lost. And she says that was an act of grace. Because my life now, my new home, my new opportunities were sparked by that. And in the moment, she would never have thought that that was grace unfolding. So grace comes in all kinds of disguises. When we remember to spend time in deep prayer and listening, we're opening to grace. Listening. We tend to want to tell God what we want, or what we think we need. Listening. When we look for the divine spark in ourselves and in everyone else, we find our oneness and we step into alignment with our God selves. When we do that, we're opening to grace.
You know, I was just told the other day, I think, they said to keep your mouth shut. You have two of these and one of these.
One of these, two of these and one of these. Listen.
Listen, more than you
That's
speak.
good. I like that. It's not that we're lifted above the law by some special favor. That's what I grew up thinking grace was. God is going to point to me and say, you, bing, have earned this special. That's not what I believe anymore. It's that we put the law to work, spirits, the law of grace, the flow of grace, to work on our behalf. We plant the seeds of receptivity. And as we do that, we begin to experience more grace in return. Modern mystic Joel Goldsmith tells us that when this inner grace takes over and goes before us to make the crooked places straight and does all things for us, then we have entered a period of life called living by grace. So let's move into a contemplative space with the words of Teresa of Avila, who said that all streams flowing forth from a clear spring are also clear. So it is with a soul in grace, planted like a tree in the spring of life. Her deeds delight both the human and the divine. So what a beautiful and poetic way to be reminded to check in. Are there any muddy streams flowing from my spring? Are there any places in my life that I need to clean up? To find out, all I need to do is to look briefly at the many aspects of my personal world. How's my health? Am I sleeping well? Taking care to nourish my body and mind with nutritious food, getting plenty of activity and exercise. How are my finances? Am I attending to what I need to be paying attention to? What about my home? Is it comfortable and well cared for, well attended? Does it bring me joy? Am I open to that sort of an experience? How about my relationships? Is there any place that I could reach out to connect, to brighten someone else's day? Have I allowed myself to maintain meaningful connections with other human beings? Have I forgiven those whom I feel have trespassed against me? These are just a few of the questions that come to mind. What a blessing it is that's so easy to see whether or not my spring is running clear. It's all around me and running through my life. It was the ancient Egyptians who gave us the Hermetic teaching, as within, so without. And so St. Teresa says a soul in grace will always show forth a life filled with beauty and light.
Amazing grace. Those of us who were raised in one of the traditional Christian religions may associate grace with manna flowing from heaven to feed the Israelites during their exodus from Egypt, Abraham and Sarah giving birth to Isaac in their old age, to Rabbi Yeshua's healings. Grace seems miraculous and mysterious. Grace has been defined in religious dictionaries as a supernatural gift of God, but there's really nothing supernatural about grace. Spiritual laws are completely natural, they just work invisibly. Grace is the givingness of spirit to creation, a gift freely given. We cannot earn grace, we can simply accept it and cooperate with it. The word grace shares a root with the word gratitude, gratis, meaning free. Our very life is freely given to us, and the appropriate response to this gift is gratitude. Living gratefully aligns us with the grace that is always available. Gratitude aligns us with the law of grace and allows it to inspire and bless us. The great Rabbi Yeshua taught that it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. And St. Paul wrote that Yeshua appeared to him in a vision, saying, "My grace is sufficient for thee." The Spirit within, our Christ consciousness, is always aware of the omnipresence of grace and aware of its sufficiency. I invite you now to think of a time when you were touched by grace, when something unexpected suddenly made things better. It may have been a challenge that simply disappeared, a spontaneous healing, an accident miraculously avoided. Remember the relief, joy, and gratitude you felt. Where did that feeling reside in your body? As we enter the sacred silence in gratitude, focus your attention on that body area and invite that feeling to return. This is how we align with divine grace. awareness is gently guided back into the present moment, we retain that grateful feeling. We are centered in the divine flow of grace. This time of Blessed Communion has brought us into a deeper alignment with peace, with love, with grace. Thank you, God, for everyone and everything. I invite you to know with me now that Spirit is moving powerfully through each of us and through our beloved community. Individually and collectively, we are a powerful spiritual influence on our world. As we evolve in consciousness, the benefits of our growth ripple out, blessing the entire world. Remembering that Spirit within us is the same Spirit that inspires Reverend Diana's message this morning, we have created a clear conduit for that inspiration to fill our hearts with amazing grace.
So grounded in this stillness, we maintain a receptive place of deep listening. So at this time in your life, where does grace show up on a regular basis? Just listening now, rather than responding outwardly. Give a moment to say thank you, in whatever way is yours, for the constant flow of blessings that are present in your life. What is the one practice that you currently have? Or what is a practice that you have been considering adding to your life that might allow you to live in the flow of grace more often? What is something you do or could be doing to make you more receptive to that flow? Because when we're living in the flow of grace, there's no fear. We're steeped in faith. As we make a practice of listening, we get inspiration. We're inspired. Feeling supported by a mighty power, the mighty power, and entitled by our divine birthright, we find it easier to keep our attention focused on that one thing, that which is what we can offer, the gift that only we can give, the life that only we can live. Each of us has that. We are all necessary. And so as we do each week, let's take a moment to anchor ourselves in prayer as we complete our service, to embody the truth of all that has been spoken. So feel free to silently hold my words as your own if they are comfortable for you. And letting go of all that has come before, letting go of anything that holds me back, I step into the flow of grace. And together we envision and take part in the creating of a love-soaked world. A love-soaked world. Together we feel and know a world where all beings are peaceful and loving and abundant and free. Through our vision, we see a world and we create a world where all people practice loving kindness for one another and care for our beautiful planet. We envision a world where all needs are met, where all beings have plenty of nourishing food, the safety and the comfort of home, medical care, education, healthy relationships, right livelihood, creative contribution, and a sense of belonging. Living from our highest ideals, we create a world in which every being is valued for their inherent goodness and light, where the peace we cultivate within shows up as a world free of violence. Together we feel and know a world without greed, where there's absolute abundance in simply having enough, where every being as a precious creation of God is deserving of all of the blessings that life has to offer, and that every being receives those blessings openly and gratefully. With humanity serving as God's hands and feet and hearts and voices, there is no reason we cannot have such a world. Whatever crops up in our minds as the blockages, we put those aside. There is no reason we cannot have such a world. With nothing and no one in its way, we do whatever it takes. We know that our vision is taking form here and now as we speak our powerful word. And now, what part do I play in creating this beautiful experience for all beings everywhere? As I walk in the world, may I sow the seeds of beauty, joy, and peace. May I sow the seeds of compassion, generosity, and kindness. May I live with the awareness that the earth is my mother, and may I sow in her the seeds of respect, mindfulness, and care, cultivating and sharing in her abundance. May the soil in my field of consciousness be rich and fertile, free from the seeds of ignorance, resistance, criticism, limitation, and arrogance. May I never sow seeds of fear, anger, judgment, or hatred, choosing instead the seeds of love, acceptance, patience, and inclusion. May I walk forever with humility, knowing that the power that enlivens this body is the only power there is, and that the spirit that breathes this body is my only inspiration. May I always remember, there but for the grace of God go I. And may my gratitude for all that I am flow like a mighty river. As I ask for guidance daily, may I have the wisdom to listen and to follow. As I give time to silent communion with the One, to study, service, and celebration, may I come to experience and know the peace that passes understanding. May my faith be eternally strong. May my heart and mind be forever open to growth and change, and welcoming to all who cross my path. May I make only positive impressions upon the flow of evolution, on the growth and development of humanity, and on all of life, leaving behind me a trail of grace that lives on and on. Right here in this sacred moment, I know and accept the truth that there is only one life, one power, one presence, one intelligence, and that one is forever expressing itself as all of creation. And so I know that I can only be spirit in form, living God's life here on earth. In this knowing, I commit my whole self to being the most loving and peaceful expression of service that I can be. I lean into the power, intelligence, and wisdom of spirit to guide my steps. I say yes to whatever I am called to do with this precious life. I trust and accept that God's fullness and completeness unfolds as an easeful flow of divine blessing, even as it calls me to higher and higher ground through daily practice and communion. As I answer the call, I grow into a more complete and fulfilled version of myself, a more perfect expression of spirit. I fully embody and live from this truth. And so grateful for my deep faith, I rest assured that this prayer, this vision, is moving into form and experience in my life and in the world right now. I lay it on the altar. I become the vessel. I let go and let God. It is done. And so it is.
So it is.
Amen.
Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in to the deepest kind of love, to the sweetest kind of life. Get ready, my soul. Everything I've ever done, everything I've ever seen, everything I've lost or won, everything I've ever dreamed has brought me here to this precious moment here, to a new beginning here, and I'm seeing life so clearly now. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in to the deepest kind of love, to the sweetest kind of life. Get ready, my soul. 'Cause here I go, deeper, deeper, deeper than I've ever been before. Here I go, closer, closer, closer to my sacred soul. I'm climbing in.
Join us.
Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in to the deepest kind of love, to the sweetest kind of life. Get ready, my soul. Get ready, my soul.
Are you ready? Get ready, my soul. So right now we take an opportunity each week to allow those who wish to share of their financial gifts with us in support of our work, allow a time to do so. And so I invite you to look at the affirmation that is about to appear before you. Know that this is a prayer, and these are words that we take to heart. This is not one of those rote things that we rattle off. Well, that's the video we're going to play. It's okay. All right. So if you'd like to join us in this affirmation, this prayer, as I awaken to the God within me and all around me, I see abundance everywhere I look. I consciously step into that flow of abundance by this act of giving. I offer this gift freely in the spirit of love, blessing and sending it forth to heal and prosper. It is evidence of my deep faith. It does good work in the world, blesses all of creation. I give from a consciousness of abundance. And so it is. Amen. And so as we do that today, please feel free to get up and boogie with Mr. Jason Miraz.
Down the weapons that you use against yourself. You don't need them anymore. Lay down the weapons that you use against the world. We don't need another war. Put down the weapons that you use against yourself. You don't need them anymore. Lay down the weapons that you use against the world. We don't need another war. My worst crime is an inside job. Dark thoughts taking over like an inside mob. I tune into the scene between the eyes and take a breath. I sit still and watch the thoughts float past me. Never mind the future, never mind what the past be. I like to jump and let the universe catch me. Free fall, watch the beauty blow past me. I keep my pockets light, destination in sight. Keep my actions elevated to compassionate heights. I'm walking past the fight, laid down arms in the night. Choosing love when I pick up this mic. So make love, not war. Make love, not war. Make love, not war. Make love, make love. World peace begins within, in each beat of the heart underneath our skin. Breathe and release the binds you're holding and free your mind. Step back from the drama and observe it. Draw the energy in and conserve it. Every pain is a lesson for the learning. Mother Nature didn't make us to be murdering. Make love, not war. Make love, not war. Make love, not war. 'Cause it's a choice we make. Make love, make love. Find a project subject to dive in a book you can write, in a dream you can fly, in a river to cry, in a magical trip to a fantasy island. It's our horizon to widen, our ceiling to heighten, our mind to enlighten, our soul to divine, in a time to invite, in a moment of silence. And I say thank you for the sound when I hear that beat. It brings me closer, closer to who I am. And all I'm supposed to be right now is a given man. And serve you water, water from the living well, to help another get out of their hell. Gotta give a little piece of yourself and make love. Make love, make love, make love. Yeah, we can help each other, help each other, help each other, help each other. Make love, make love, make love, make love. Yeah, we can help each other, help each other, help each other, help each other. When we make love, make love, make love, make love, make love, make love. Make love, 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 make love.
And in that energy, the happy, the joyful, the loving, I take this moment to say thank you, God. Thank you for the presence of my family here. Thank you for the beauty of the day. Thank you for the food I know we're going to eat. Thank you for the blessings and for the giving of each person, both in time, talent, and treasure, knowing that everything that we receive goes out to spread love, to spread joy. And so I just say thank you, Father, Mother, God, and so it is. Amen. So, please join us now for our closing song, and then let's go have some lasagna.
Yeah. Remember that our donation basket that's near the food is going to a local no-kill shelter, Tales of Rescue. So every month we send that money off to Tales of Rescue to support our fur babies.
And speaking of finding everything on our website, I'd like to thank Suli for letting us know she found a little too much on our website the other day. So
Wow.
I appreciate you getting a hold of us right away so we can we take that down.
That shouldn't have been there. A site that we didn't want to be connected to.
May your soul always find what it's looking for. May your heart always lead the way. May you live in peace and harmony, and may love always fill your day. May your path be strewn with happiness. May success find you everywhere. May you always embrace compassion and grace, and may God always answer your prayer. for you and me. Take your past and set it free and share this blessing. Love be with you, peace enfold you, spirit lift you, breathe it in. To come to you, make them flow to you, let joy renew you until we meet again. Love be with you, ooh, love be with you, love be with you, ooh, love be with you, ooh, love be with you, ooh, love be with you until we meet again. Love be with you, ooh, love be with you, breathe it in. Love be with you, ooh, love be with you, love be with you, ooh, love be with you, love be with you.
Have a beautiful Sunday. We love you.
Many blessings.